We are currently in the midst of the AI revolution. I think this is comparable to living during the Industrial Revolution. Okay. So when the steam engine was coming about, and I think you've got to choose, are you the guy that's still going to be like, no, no, I'm good with the horse and carriage? Or, are you the guy that are in the cottage industry? Or are you the guy that's going to be like, all right, I have to adopt and adapt. And I'm all about widgetization and efficiency. And maybe there's a happy medium there, but AI is coming. We've already done a huge transformation of the law firm, and we're at the tail end of transforming the real estate company. Um, I see AI in real estate as making realtors just needing less of them, right? And that traditional real estate model is not going to be there. Welcome to Silberman Realty's Property Desk Podcast, episode 14, where we talk about all things residential real estate in Texas. Today is July 21st, 2026, and I'm Phil Silberman, owner of the company and host, and I'm joined by my co-host today, Phil Chaluparambil, who is Silberman Realty's Director of Operations. Phil, how are you doing today?
Doing all right. Well, thanks for having me on.
All right, we got the two Phils on the show. You're known as Phil C, and I'm known as Phil S, sort of around the organization, around the company. Got to start off with a little bit of sad news for our listeners. We do have some loyal listeners to this show, and they're used to seeing Robert Vernon. Robert, no longer with the company, great guy, a wonderful real estate agent, no hard feelings against Robert. He's still out there doing great things, just not with us. Our model of property management, sort of selling and real estate leasing, has changed, and it's been changing for a while. Sort of the traditional realtor model has, in my view, has become obsolete, made possible by AI. So we're doing sort of some transformational things, and we don't need as many realtors, unfortunately. So yeah. But Phil, you're here. You're the business guy. You're not a real estate agent, but you're not new to real estate. You're not new to real estate. You come from a corporate environment. I think you worked for Accenture for a long time. Tell us a little bit about your journey, and sort of, just start with like where you went to school, what was your degree in, what was your job, kind of the Accenture thing, and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So, I went to U of H, degree in computer systems engineering. From there, I went straight to Accenture from school. The first 17 years or so of my career at Accenture, and if you don't know, listening, you don't know, Accenture is a global consulting and technology company. I served as, my last several years there as an executive in their trading and risk management practice, where I typically work on large multi-million-dollar transformational projects with many super major oil and gas companies and servicers, like, everybody has heard of these names, Shell, BP, Halliburton, and things like that. So, very large digital transformation, with regards to the trading and risk management space. So
yeah, and I want to talk about that just for the listeners a little bit that don't realize, what type of an achievement that is. First of all, just to get the big consulting firm job means you were likely top of your class. And then once you got the big firm consulting job, to get to, you made it to senior manager level, a very minimal percentage of the kids they hire go much more than what, a year or two. They last 2 to 3 years. And I mean, talk to listeners about what that looks like.
yeah, it's really like, I always, I tell my kids too, I said, the first job you get out of college, you really need to aim high. Right. So a lot of people do that. And, sometimes consulting is not for everybody long-term. It's a very taxing. It can be very stressful. It can also be very exciting. Like, I did some traveling and things. while I was at Accenture. You're working for big companies. There's a lot of glitz and glamour, or at least they used to be, when I first started, with all the per diems and the hotel stays and, the rental cars and all that. When you're young and single, it's very, very exciting. But soon you progress to like sort of the next level of your life and you're starting a family and things like that. So a lot of people end up sort of jumping ship and it's a big platform to jump from is, a company like Accenture where a lot of opportunities open up for you. So people tend to leave for a different lifestyle for one reason or another. But you get, I would say like, maybe, don't quote me on this number, but it may be 1% or less of the people start that make a career out of it and get to the executive office.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably less than 1%, I think, that make it to senior manager. So I'll brag on Phil a little bit. So you,
Modest.
you're an elite company there, but 17 years at Accenture, I mean, that's a long time. I mean, how did you decide just one day you were going to resign and you wanted? I mean, you basically a house flipper. I mean, you went from big consulting to helping Fortune 500 companies to, hey, I'm going to go out there and hustle and flip houses. What did your wife say?
My, fortunately, my wife is very supportive with all the decisions I make, and you know, maybe thinking back, she should be a little less supportive.
That's a dagger to all organization.
No, but I mean,
I know. How did I end up here on this podcast?
no, it's great. No, I mean, it was kind of twofold, right? Like I got to a position where, there was going to be. Listen, anytime you hear somebody that's in consulting, all you think about is that they do a lot of traveling. And I was fortunate enough, we're in an industry, oil and gas, where it's very, very heavy and prominent in Houston. So I avoided a lot of the traveling. And even when we did move to Washington, D.C. for my wife's work, she still works for the U.S. Patent Office. It was a benefit. I was able to just travel right back to Houston and fly her back, and we were kind of, our family never felt like we left Houston, but I'm in D.C. also. But it got to a point where, bigger projects, bigger roles, and, it was going to be a lot more travel overseas and longer stints. And my kids were, I got 4 boys at home and, just didn't want to really be away from them for too long at a time. It was twofold. It wasn't just that. I always had this itch for real estate, right? Even while I was at Accenture, for many years, I, sort of dabbled in the real estate investor space. And then, just kind of, clicked at some point. I was like, okay, it feels right. Chrissy was supportive and, finally just pulled the trigger and left Accenture to do that, do the real estate investment full time. I did that for a few years and it was great when the market was good. It was really great. Then, as you know, very, very well, prices went up, costs of goods go up, margins go down, and then it stops being so glamorous and fun.
Well, it's hard to, let's give the listeners a little color to that. Okay, so when you entered the flipping industry, right, where you're going to buy, it's quite literally as simple as buying low and selling high. What year was that?
It was around 2020, well, maybe early 2021.
Okay, so you happened to enter like at the perfect time. You timed the market, just right. And I'm not a big market timing guy. I don't believe you can time the market, but Phil C, he timed it right. And you got out and I mean, you couldn't lose because you started anything you bought, it just kept going up and up till when 2024, it's about like that is when it kind of fell off.
Yeah, just around 2024, I would say. Yeah,
Yeah.
margins were just razor thin at that point.
Yeah.
It's like you said, you could buy anything and make money in that 2021 time frame. And we did investments back. We started buying houses. I say as a family, that my brother did it, my dad does it, and he kind of got me into it. But we were buying back in 2010, maybe a little earlier than that. During that recession, and at that time, it was actually really interesting because me and my brother were working full time, Accenture, EY, and my dad just had the keys to the business, like the blank checks, and he would just go into these banquet halls where it would just be 1,500 people in there and just foreclosures all day long.
Yeah.
Picking up houses for pennies on the dollar, sight unseen. So it was easy to do it.
Yeah. I don't want to scare anybody. That's a topic for another show, but we may be closer to that environment than we are to where when you came. But yeah, 2010 was a great time to buy stuff. You're coming off the 2008 Great Recession, and I've got several friends that got money together and bought. If you knew what was going to happen, you would have bought everything you could have possibly bought, right? I mean, any I mean, you would have bought stocks, real estate, any if we knew that we were gonna create this huge asset bubble with low interest rates for 20 years, you would have bought everything, right? So, yeah, but you really quit Accenture. You hit the flipper, world at the opportune time, and as long as things are going up, you can't lose as a flipper. When things are stagnation like we are right now, or even down a little bit, very hard to make money. I mean, right now on our real estate side, leasing and sales, I mean, we're just struggling with things to get leased or sold. There's just not a lot of transaction volume there, right? So it would be a very hard time for to be a flipper. So Phil, you get out of the business. You came to work for Silberman Realty, Silberman Law Firm. Phil also runs the business side of the law firm to the listeners out there. That's a very popular show. We might have you on that show at some point. I think a lot of lawyers we have a huge listener base of lawyers. That's a much bigger show at the weekly docket. I do think a lot of lawyers would benefit from hearing the business side of the practice of law. This is a real estate show. There's also a business to this, but all right, let's move on. That's your story. Glad to have you, Phil.
Thanks.
So super, super great things happening, and we've already kind of made huge improvement, and we're continuing on, and we're living at this world of AI. And Phil, you and I are about the same age, so I mean, correct me if I'm mischaracterizing anything, but we came out of college still in the midst of the dot-com bubble bursting. So there were like no jobs, and the asset, I mean, everything was terrible. And we had just lived through this internet transformation, and we'd laid all this fiber optic cable thinking the internet was going to be the next greatest thing. And it didn't really, I would say the internet didn't really fulfill its full potential sometime until about 2015. So we've already lived through one disruption, which would be the internet and sort of fiber optic communication. And then you and I lived through the 2008 Great Recession, which is an industry disruption. And then I would also say that COVID was also an industry disruption in the sense that we went from traditional facilities to a virtual environment. And I know that Jamie Dimon out there for Chase and all these old guys think that return to office is back. I'm going to tell you the numbers don't lie. And it's not, it's the percentages are not budging from whatever it is, what I can't remember, don't quote me on the percentage, but there are still almost just as many people working from home. That right when we came out of COVID, the percentages have just not moved that much. I mean, once we were beyond okay, we're not all going to die immediately from COVID, and we don't need to be putting our groceries in the sunlight. And then kind of then it normalized where there was some return to work. We haven't moved from that point. So we are now living through, Phil, I would say what the fourth industry disruption. So my joke is, let me retire or die before I have to live through another industry disruption, because AI may be the only thing I've got left. We are currently in the midst of the AI revolution. I think this is comparable to living during the Industrial Revolution. Okay. So when the steam engine was coming about, and I think you've got to choose, are you the guy that's still going to be like, no, I'm good with the horse and carriage? Or, are you the guy that are in the cottage industry? Or are you the guy that's going to be like, all right, I have to adopt and adapt, and I'm all about widgetization and efficiency? and maybe there's a happy medium there, but AI is coming. We've already done a huge transformation of the law firm, and we're at the tail end of transforming the real estate company. Um, I see AI in real estate as making realtors just needing less of them, right? And that traditional real estate model is not going to be there. We've got some examples. The just you're familiar with the CMA, comparative market analysis. Have you did you used to you have realtors work for you? You had realtors help you, and have they ever manually done CMAs for you? So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, it's funny, right? Because I would ask them to get me one real quick, and it would be like at least a half a day or the next day before
right,
I got them, right?
right,
It
yeah.
takes time. They had to go sit at their computer and they click through all these comparables and all that, and as far
That that was a that was a big thing that realtors did because the MLS was the guardian of data. So if you needed a realtor membership to get into the MLS, and then once you were into the MLS, you could then get the comparables. That's just not as relevant anymore, and it doesn't. And now we have an application at our firm for our owners that are leasing properties, our owners that are selling properties, and we have an assistant use an application that we designed, and it's not like the latest and greatest. It's not like the most. I think it took me all of like a couple hours to design the app, and all it does is take a weighted average of all the online internet listings and like Zillow estimate, Redfin estimate, and then it takes the comparables that we load in from the MLS and it creates a suggested lease price or sales price. And we have an offshore person who's wonderful that does that in a matter of probably takes 20 minutes for Joy to do that. You think it takes longer than that? That's what I think. But anyway, so
yeah, I don't think it takes longer, maybe less.
yeah, and it spits yeah, it spits out a great like executive analysis, and you see all the how it calculates everything and goes right over to the owners. And I'm going to tell you, it's accurate, very accurate as far as I can tell. One of my concepts for the show is going to be can't like I'm going to try to do a manual CMA on historically sold properties. I'm going to see if I can beat my own application, and we'll see who's closer. And I don't think I can beat it. So that was something
I
realtors.
think it's real. Yeah, I mean, the thing that really impressed me was that executive summary and the way it puts it out there in just a standardized format for the owners to be able to see, and it kind of I think it gives credibility too that we have a process like that might be ahead of the curve.
Yeah, it's. I think it's better than. I think it's certainly better than any sort of our realtors could do. It just pulls so much data. Tenant screening apps is another place where there's been huge amounts of movement. We used to have realtors that were I'll never forget a realtor told me, is like, I just got to smell the application. And I'm like, what are you smelling here? And this is in the midst of all kinds of rampant fraud where we're getting completely fake IDs and there's just no way. I mean, you couldn't smell anything. I know I tried. I couldn't. So the tenant screening apps are great. I mean, the technology, and this is all through a lot of this is through Appfolio, but taking the facial recognition software and matching the ID and then just comparing all the outputs and then having the application, the AI sort of compare the inputs to what our screening criteria is. Just a human is just going to miss that all those data points, and then it spits out an executive analysis. It tells the owner what where the risks are, where the positives are. So I mean, that's just another example. So, and you've seen that one, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Very happy. And we have other apps that we're developing, but it's the theme is that the manual realtor process has just changed. It has changed, and it's not going back. Okay, it's just not going to go back to the days of yore, so to speak. But um, Here's another. Let's move on to our next topic, and we've received a lot of resistance on this. Smart lock boxes, self-guided tours. Phil, could you just sort of explain to listeners how that's a project you're working on? Could you explain to listeners how that's working and what that's supposed to do?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just obviously they're the standard lockbox everybody's familiar with, right? Like the combination, and they get the combination physically manually from the realtor, and you take the key out and open the door. So the smart lockbox is a little bit different. This is mainly for the ability to have unescorted showings, to where a potential tenant could come and view a house that you have listed, and they don't have to have a real estate agent with them or a broker with them to view it. And the smart lockbox takes care of the ID verification, facial recognition, possibly background checks, or enough verification to give the homeowner and the realtors on the other side, confidence that, that their asset is safe and it's controlled and monitored, right? Using the technology.
Yeah. I mean, the core business problem here is if you have hundreds of single family rentals, it's not like an apartment complex where you have someone on site. It's especially during the busy season, it's nearly impossible to schedule our people that are based in those cities to go out and do tours of all these properties. And the tenant reps that used to be available to take these tenants out and show the properties, there's not a lot of realtors doing tenant representation anymore. And that's a product of some changes in the law where how realtors were allowed to do tenant representation, right? And they have to have special forms signed. It's a much bigger pain to do tenant rep. Um, and you can't advertise your commissions in the MLS anymore. That's a rule that was meant to kind of comply with a recent lawsuit. So tenant representation has gone way down. So we have to come up with solutions to get these properties shown on a tenant schedule in an instant gratification society. And these lock boxes are a great thing. A lot of our owners are not coming around to them. I don't know. Do you have any idea what the resistance might be? They're scared that it can only be a vacant property. I mean, so what are they scared of, Phil?
I mean, I have a theory, right? Like, because I can use myself as an example, right? Like we've had, or, my family, we've had, several rental properties that we have out there that we're leasing out or whatever. And many of them, my brother will say he's never even set foot in before. He's never seen them before. Like I said earlier, my dad went out and bought many of these with the blank checks that he had from us and sight unseen, right? We never actually seen so. However, so we're sort of like, when you have multiple in a portfolio of them, maybe you're somewhat disconnected from it being personal, and it's more just a business asset versus some of these owners that may have one house or two houses. Maybe they used to live in one of them before, so they have a personal connection. So somehow they feel like it's, you know, security or privacy violation if someone's just going in there without any escort from
Yeah.
a realtor. That's my opinion.
Yeah. To me, it doesn't make sense. House is vacant. There's not a lot they can do in there. There's a background. There's sort of a soft background check going on. I think on the technology, there's a technology stack behind it. They have to use a credit card. There's just a huge. It's facial recognition right at the lockbox. I mean, I don't think this is a risk. The Trek has some required disclosures that they have to sign that are pretty scary. That might be scaring them off, right? Like, oh, you'll assume the risk of vandalism and all this stuff. So that might be scaring the owners off. But I don't think there's any real risk to. I mean, as a saying that I saw before, it's about the same risk as getting stepped on by a dinosaur, right? So that's one of the sayings. But we have to see where that goes. But Phil, thanks for coming on the show. That does bring our show to a close. I've been your host, Phil Silberman. Phil C has been my co-host. Like us, follow us, review us wherever you get your podcast. And as a reminder, nothing on this show is to be considered legal advice or investment advice. This has all been for entertainment purposes only. If you have a question about real estate or anything else, preferably real estate, email us at info@silbermanrealty.com and tell us you want it publicly answered in the podcast. Everybody have a great rest of your week.